we're back. We have on different outfits, so we know that it's been another time since we talked last, but it's only been a day this time. It hasn't been like a month between. So yesterday we talked a good bit about the experiences with providers, be they professional providers or community providers, or you even stepping forward and putting a program together to provide, and the provision of what you get and what your husband gets. Okay. Yeah. And pretty much in many cases, the rejection of many systems for an atypical younger onset individual who, although the brain changes have been massive, the body shifting is not necessarily the frailty that people associate with more classic Alzheimer's, aged type dementia. And so not really having a plan of action as a society for what to do in these situations. And when people try to do something, there's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And you and I are both of an age that we remember what happened when people with developmental disabilities, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, were first brought, and even autism, we said, you know what? No more institutionalization. We're not doing this. This is not healthy. It's not well. It's not what we should be doing. We need to.
But don't bring them to my institution. Don't bring them to my place. Right?
And I don't want to see them at McDonald's, kind of
phenomenal. Not with my kids' class. The other class is fine, but not in my kids.
We'll put it they'll be in a contained classroom. And it's like,
right.
So yeah, we've gone through.
But there's been progress.
Yeah, we have made progress, but I think there's still pockets of people who still would prefer everybody look similar to how they look and act similar to how they act, instead of being open to the idea, can we come into community in a way that's more inclusive? I don't know. I mean, can we include people in our community that are different and learn and see value? And that's what we were really talking about, the value of the human being of value, full value, not less value, not change value. So now I want to shift gears a little bit in perspectives and talk about family members. We've talked with you. Now you have kids and you have grandkids, and you talked about your one grandson and how when he calls, he wants to call, he calls, and he wants you to go put the phone up so he can talk to his grandpa. And that's what he wants to do. He wants to see his grandpa, and he wants to have a conversation with his grandpa there. And I'm curious about the other kids who were grown mostly when this happened, but young. And
my kids were reasonably grown. My kids were all, the youngest was in high school, so they weren't little kids.
They weren't little kids. So this wasn't a little kid phenomenon. They were young adults when this was happening, more or less, but was still with developing brains and developing lives. I mean, because they were developing their own lives.
For sure.
For sure. And they're who they were and who they were going to be, who they were going to be with and all that. And then they did develop relationships, and now they have kids. So tell us a little bit about the kids and how they came into relationship or didn't with their dad during this shift, and with you during the shift.
I will tell you, I mean, I think, to be really honest about it, it's certainly not linear. It's like everything else in this dementia journey. And sometimes, one kid's on the up and one kid's on the down. And now we are not we're certainly no longer an American family. So we're not a typical American family where we have 3 teenagers living at home.
Right.
By the time we moved to Israel, the truth is our 2 older kids were more or less out of the house. It doesn't mean that they didn't come back, and the country's very small. So coming back for weekends, coming back for the Sabbath together,
how far away can you be? I mean, how many hours?
In hours, one of my kids did national service all the way up in the Golan Heights. And it would take me 3.5 hours to get there. Yeah. And by comparison, when we lived in Michigan and our family bases were in Baltimore and Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So when she would call and say, could you bring me my winter clothes? And I first said to her, it's really far. And she said, are you serious? It's really far. You used to drive 12 hours with us during the summer to go home and see grandparents.
Yeah,
It's not far.
yeah, I agree with you.
Not far.
Yeah.
Not far.
It's
So
not.
yes, so we're not as divided as we were in America. I mean, 12 hours away, we didn't do that on the weekends, but 3 hours away, 4 hours away, hop on a bus, you come home. But their experiences actually were very different. I guess maybe the one who experienced more of the day to day or week to week was our youngest, who was here from the beginning. He was living in a dorm school, like in the community across the road from us. So 5 minutes in the car and he was home.
Yeah.
And he did come home like usually like once a week. They had an early afternoon so the kids could go home and have, family life. Family
Because
life is
most of
good.
the kids would have been local, relatively local.
They actually was a school that drew from all over the country. But
Ah,
again, the
okay.
kids
Okay.
who
So not
couldn't,
always.
the kids who didn't go home either went home to a friend's, at home
Yeah.
with a friend. There was what to do.
It was a common event. It wasn't like uniquely him
He
doing it
wasn't
and his
coming home specially
fight. It was
because
just
of
sort
his
of what they
father's
did.
situation. Right,
Gotcha. Okay.
right.
That's sort of a different phenomena than many kids experience here in the
For
state
sure,
when
for
they get
sure.
called into service
Right.
because
Now, he
there's
did get called, all of them
yeah,
got called in at different times and in
right.
different ways. Um, the whole phenomenon, the whole journey was fairly new as he was starting high school. I mean, looking back, I can see changes in his father, my husband's personality long before we were thinking about a diagnosis. So yes, he was subjected to that like we all were. But and there were things like once a week there was a study time. He went to an all boys
Ah,
high school. So when I say the boys, it's not because of anything other than it was a boys' high school.
it was a boys' high school.
Um, it was a religious high school, and so the boys learned together. The girls had their own high school, and there was one evening set aside for fathers to come and learn religious texts with their sons, and which is a very meaningful part. And developmentally, most of the boys grew up in religious households where learning with parents is a very normal, like eating with parents, you study with parents. That's not an unusual thing. And so the high school continued that part of the tradition. That's just a normal part of the tradition. In our case, my husband didn't grow up in a religious household.
Uh-huh.
And so he
And he
was
didn't
not
speak Hebrew
steeped
either.
and right. So he didn't grow up with the background that would have made him the right teacher for our children in that respect at any point in their lives.
Yeah.
I can tell you, however, I can remember that he was still working when this kicked off. And he just never managed to make it back to our area that he could go on whatever night of the week. I think it was Wednesday nights or Thursday nights, whatever night of the week it was that everybody else's father showed up.
Okay.
My sons didn't. Now, the kids from far away, the kids whose fathers would have a 3-hour, 4-hour drive each way, also usually didn't come. And I
Yeah.
once remember, and my heart sunk when I heard the answer. I asked my son, what do you do when, like, because he knew other kids and other fathers. There were people from the neighborhood. Like, he had friends whose fathers were going, who I knew would be more than happy, having nothing to do with dementia, having to do with a father who's still in his office and couldn't or wouldn't or just didn't come for this evening. My son could have sat with any number of his friends and their fathers. So I once said to him, so what do you do, when your father's not there? And he said, oh, I sit with the orphans. And I said, the orphans? And he said, oh yeah, that's what we call ourselves with the ones whose fathers don't come.
Ouch. Ouch.
That was a big ouch for me.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was during that year that this whole thing started to cascade and open up, and
Yeah.
it wasn't a button to push, because in fact it might have been more embarrassing for him to have his father there
saying or
and not
doing
behaving
things.
like the other
Yeah,
fathers.
not saying and doing things he should. Did did that ever get revisited with you, Susan, when you did discover what it was? And it's a FTD. Oh my heavens, how odd, but how, and you brought
I
it
don't
up.
think
Did that piece ever come back up as a, oh,
I I
oh,
don't think that specific piece, there was a
okay.
much more global understanding on the
Mhm.
part of this child of
Mm,
what was happening around him. It
okay.
became much more I'll relay some I'll share some other episodes with him going a couple of years down the road. There were a number of times that my son, his name is Ari, that Ari was in the house and it was just Ari and me
Mm,
and John. And a number of years later, there were episodes where, for instance, there were times that I needed help with intimate care, let's call it cleaning, like once when the front door opened and there was snow on the ground, and I looked around and it wasn't just snow on the ground. And I knew that Ari was home in his room, also on the first floor of our house. And I felt so awful having to call our son to come help me with something so awful and disgusting. Um, and I didn't have a better choice. And I called him apologetically, like seriously apologetically. To this day, I can feel my heart on the ground, saying to him, I am so, so, so sorry to have to ask you to help me with this, but I have to help you. I have to ask you need to help me get Abba back inside the house. Abba meaning father.
yep.
You have to help me get Abba back in the house. I'm gonna clean him up, but I need another pair of hands, and you're the only hands here. And I know this is really terrible, and I wish it wasn't for you, for him, for me. But we got to deal with reality, and let's get him inside. It's freezing cold outside, and let's just deal with what we have to deal with.
Yeah.
And God bless my son was, you know, let's just do it. Let's just get it done. And you take care of what you have to take care of.
So,
Um,
so
right.
So is he a toucher feeler, or is he, like some kids are much more, they love a hug, they love the conversation, they love that opportunity. Or was he more of like I can picture that he might be a more esoteric sort of head person or
You
more of
know,
a physical?
I honest to goodness, I think he may have had the personality of something more toward the touchy-feely.
Mhm.
But I think these changes with his father had started
Yeah.
so in his life that developmentally there was distancing.
Mhm.
That when I look back, I mean, we're still hugging, no question about that. Um, hug his father, I mean, years. But I think there was distancing because there was already awkward behavior. There was already and the awkward behavior really well before diagnosis. We're
Mhm.
talking
Yeah. I
years
mean,
before.
yeah, I mean,
Really
we know
took
that the changes have been going on for five
yeah,
to 20 years before we can
yeah.
pull it together enough to recognize it
And
for
before
that.
the
Yeah,
before
yeah,
the changes are so
yeah.
destructive in our day-to-day,
Solid.
right?
Yeah.
So I can tell you the things that I remember even before we lived in this country. I remember one episode that the things that stay in my heart obviously were significant.
Yep.
Where our then early teen, young teen needed a pair of sneakers,
Ah,
and it was Sunday in America, which is day you can go and take kids
yep,
shopping. Here
yep.
we Sunday is a regular work day, but it was still America. I wasn't in my office, John wasn't in his office. Whatever I was doing, I was doing. And I said, somebody's got to take him. He needs a pair of sneakers. And John said, yeah, so I'll take him over to the mall. We'll get a pair of sneakers. And they came back a couple hours later, and my son, Ari had not found a pair of sneakers, but John had two pairs for himself.
Wow. Ouch. Ouch.
Right,
Ouch. Yeah.
right.
Wow. What was your
So
reaction to that, Susan, in that moment? What happened in that moment? Anything for you? Or looking back, you see it, but you didn't at the time.
no, in the moment, I said, what the hell's going on here? Kid needs a pair of sneakers, and you found two. And Ari said to me, and you'll understand this with your background. And he said, yeah, I just didn't find anything I really wanted. And I think I probably said to him, you know what, maybe like tomorrow after school, maybe I'll come home from work early and we'll pop out, or tomorrow evening or something, and we'll take care. You need sneakers, you get sneakers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
He got
don't I don't remember
he
making a
did a
big
role, he did
to-do
a
over
role
it.
transition already. He was doing a role shift already. There's no
Yeah.
point in me, Mom, you're gonna say it later, but I'm gonna say it now.
Yeah.
You just do
Yeah.
what you gotta do. I mean,
Yeah.
so he already had that, if you gotta do it, you gotta do it attitude, from early.
Right. And my guess is things started long before that episode, that this child at age, he couldn't have been more than 12 or 13,
Yeah.
already understood the
Something's not
sneakers are
quite.
not the end of the world. If it doesn't happen now, it'll probably happen
He
later.
needs it
I'm
more
not
than I
gonna,
need it. He needs it for some reason. I don't know what it is, but we're shopping for dad
whatever.
sneakers,
Like,
not
doesn't
my
make any
sneakers.
sense, but
Yeah.
I can't win this battle, so I'm not gonna fight
Not
the
worth
war.
it. It's not a fight I want to fight.
Right.
So as of now, which is X years later, I mean, a lot of years later,
Many years later.
what's the relationship, would you say now?
I think Ari very much sees himself as a helper to me in caregiving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, he is very good about going through the motions when he and his wife and child come here
Mm-hmm.
to spend Sabbath with us, Shabbat with us, or holidays with us. They obviously come in, they say hello.
Yep.
They are, really conscientious about holding up their 1.5-year-old
Yep.
to make some connection.
Yep.
But it's
There's distance.
there's clearly distance.
There's distance, and
Yeah.
there's a relationship that is, would you say, a little more on the obligatory side than the heartfelt, excited side?
Oh, there's no excitement. I mean, there's nothing exciting to come back to. And in fact, I can tell you that my kids for a while, because our full-time live-in caregiver has every other weekend off, weekend meaning from Friday midday till Saturday night.
Yeah.
For a while, it was the physical care was really, really, really hard. And I got to a point when I said to the kids, you know what, guys? I need some help here on the weekends that I'm solo.
Yep.
And within, I don't know, an hour or two, I mean, I knew it happened fast. They had put together a schedule of who's
Who's going to
on,
do what? Yeah.
who's on,
So
and which
they were
meant
waiting for you to ask. You know that, right?
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I've asked other things at other times, and they're very happy to be part of. At one point, a couple of years ago, I didn't have to do a quick trip. I chose to do a very quick trip to the States as an opportunity to see my father before he passed away. My kids had done that trip the summer before, when we knew that my father had end-stage leukemia, and we were expecting his demise fairly quickly, and it didn't happen quickly. But each of the kids had gone with their children to make their separation and say their goodbyes. And then I got a call from my siblings still in the States saying, if we've just talked to the doctors and they really think it's imminent. It turned out it wasn't imminent. It was 7 months later, but it didn't matter.
It's whenever your dad decided it was time to go, not
Right. But the phone call came, and I called my kids. It was a Friday morning, and I said, look, I just need to let you know, spoke to your uncles last night, and it looks like, and they were very, very close to my father, as was I. And I just want to let you know the next call we get is going to be that he's passed away. And it was actually one of my sons-in-law who called, and I sent that out on a family WhatsApp chat so that everybody gets the message at the same time.
Yep.
30 seconds later, my phone rang, and it was actually one of my sons-in-law, my big boy, as we call him. And he said to me, so are you flying out tomorrow night, meaning Saturday night? We don't fly during the Sabbath, so next opportunity is Saturday night. And I said to him, what are you talking about? Do you think like my life changed? You don't know what's going on in you haven't been part of this family for years? And he said to me, Susan, we all had a chance to see your father, and he had an exceptionally close relationship with my father. You didn't go, and you and I both know how important it will be for you and for your father. You need to go. And I said, I need to go, but I've got John here. Like, brass tacks, I got responsibility. And he said to me, you're not the only adult in this family. He said, I, yeah,
Exclamation
right,
point. Let's.
right.
It's like
So I
a
said to him,
huge.
okay, I tell you what, I'll think about it. And I hung up the phone, and my phone rang, and it was my daughter, his wife. And
Huh.
I said to her, and it was
Think fast.
exactly the same conversation, and they
You
weren't
need to think
together.
fast, okay?
So
Think
I
fast.
said,
So
did
you
you
need to
just
get the
talk to
ticket.
each other? And she goes, what are you talking about? I said, I just spoke to Ellie, and now you're calling me. And she said, Ima, it really doesn't matter who talks to you, because there's really one right answer, and you just have to take care of it. Book the ticket. And the upshot was I flew the next weekend. I left here Saturday night, and I was back on the ground Monday afternoon here. I spent 4 hours. Yeah. Fortunately, my father lived on the East Coast, so, and as did my siblings. So I was able to see everybody. I was able to see all my siblings and their spouses and a couple of nieces and nephews. Not everybody, but we had 4 hours together, and that was. But my kids pulled in during those 2 days, essentially 2 days I was missing here. One of them chose to sleep here in the house overnight because our caregiver, although by law in this country it's a crazy law, he's supposed to be on 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. Shoot me now. No human being works that way. The
That
law
isn't
here,
that doesn't even make sense. It's like what?
I mean,
You wouldn't
it's
have
a
a
live-in
caregiver,
position.
you'd have a zombie.
Right. So I have, from the first day we ever had a caregiver here, our caregivers are on during the day and I'm on at night.
Mhm.
And that's just the way it's always been, and it will always be, because I don't see a human being being responsible. Nobody works 24-hour shifts. No human should be expected to work and be on call. And if somebody gets up during the night, the fact that you worked all day doesn't. So anyway, my kids knew that there was no way that I would just dump on our professional caregiver to cover. So one of them came and spent the nights here. And one of them took a day off of work and spent the day. And I said to her, but during the day, it's really, and she said, you know what, Ima, during the day and then she said to me, Abba is a family project. It's not just your responsibility. And so this is a particular time when we all need to be part of this story. So there's no more discussion, Ima, mother. This is just what's going to be. You have a ticket to fly, you're going to fly, get yourself to and from the airport, and in between,
We'll
we're
take
on.
it. You got it.
We're
Yeah.
on. So my kids have really stepped up to the plate big time. Some have, they had different relationships with their father growing up. Some
So
of that
that
is reflected.
mhm.
Um, some of that is still reflected. I mean, I think that that's a normal, healthy. They didn't suddenly become all cuddly because he became disabled. Duh. I mean,
Yeah.
that also wouldn't be normal or natural. But
So
they've
now,
all.
so I'm curious of the folks of all the kids. Oh, dear. Hang on. We'll cut that part out. This light is going to be the demise of me. So with all the kids and all the variations, who is most like John and who's most like you?
That's a really hard question to answer, because most like John before he was
Mhm.
ill,
Yep.
because I would hate to think that any of them are like to
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, I'm
if we're
talking
talking,
about if you
okay,
think back
before.
John
Yeah.
historically, and you get
Okay,
the two
okay.
gene pools together, and you go, okay,
Your
so what
question
came
sort of
out of
hit me
all that?
hard.
Yeah. What
Who's
came
like
out
him
of all
now?
that?
Nobody, thank God. My oldest daughter is most like John.
Oldest daughter.
My
Okay.
Oh, this
high
is much
intellectual,
totally
lots of cognitive, lots of
very
thinking.
intellectual. She
Mhm.
actually is named for his father, who was supremely intelligent, like seriously intelligent,
Yeah.
um, and died very young from pancreatic cancer.
Ugh. Ugh.
She and John, both of them have type 1 diabetes. So they've had that shared experience.
They
But
get
before
that.
that shared experience,
Yeah.
there was the intellectual side of them. She was the one who was self-taught reading at 3.
Wow. Hmm.
You know, when you find out that
Yep.
your kid knows how to read, when she looks at the Cheerios box and she says, "What is thiamine?" And you think to yourself, what? Like, where is
Oh
that from?
no. It's like,
We're in
oh
trouble.
no, this is gonna
We're in
be
big,
a
yeah,
rocky
we're in big
road
trouble.
on education.
It was really hard to get her out of the house in the morning because she was reading the fine print on the boxes of cereal, yeah, like that.
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
didn't know what thiamine was at the time. I had to figure, I had to learn because she
That's
really
what
wanted an answer.
homeschooling is. Didn't you notice? That's homeschooling. She homeschooling
I
you.
paid a fortune for them in private school.
Well, either that or you're going to have problems because they'll be bored. They'll be
Whatever.
bored
We
out
had
of their,
all of the above.
yeah, and all of the
Right.
above.
But so
So,
she was in personality, in connection to words, books.
yeah,
Oh my God, she was a consummate reader. She, yes, they shared that deep personality, very, very connected.
yeah,
My next one is very much, much more like me. Um,
practical. Let's like, okay, here's how it
yeah,
is. This is
figure
what we're
out
going to do. Okay, here's how
that's
the
it.
game plan. Here, I'm the
She
sergeant
wants,
major. I will figure out where the troops need to be, how we're going to move this pattern. We got it all figured. Here's the lineup. Wait, I've got a to-do list over here. We're going to work through these.
you got us. You got us. She once chastised me because she called me one day as an adult who was already finished. Maybe she was in university, I don't remember, or she'd already finished her first degree.
Uh-huh.
And she called to actually chastise her mother. And she said to me, you taught us all a lot of really great life skills. And we've all grown up and we've dealt with lots of stuff, good, bad, and ugly, and all the things that we do. And she said, but there's something you just didn't teach us, and it's really getting in the way of my life. And I just, it bothers me to think that this is what you chose not to teach us. And I said to her, what is it?
Is that?
She said, you never taught me how to deal with idiots. And I'm having a really hard time. You can cut that out if you want. But
No, I mean, it's like that feeling of like, but you didn't teach me how when I can't get somebody to get something, what to do about it. And it's
well,
like,
no, because then you can get it yourself. But
yeah,
when but when you have somebody who is your supervisor or your professor or your colleague,
yeah,
whom you have not chosen, and you have to make do with what there is.
yep,
Okay, in the global scene, fine, not a big deal. But when it's a human being
mhm,
who's just
yep.
not smart, like, yeah,
And
really
really
hard.
narrow. And I would say, well, unfortunately, she was off living her life separately when you were going through that repeatedly with John's care support
He
system.
saw it with John. It was okay with John because John has an impairment. He
Oh,
has a
no, no, no.
medical
I
issue.
wasn't talking about with John. I'm talking about the people who were supposed to be supporting John and were having so much trouble.
Oh, that was, yeah, right.
But
I mean, we were all
you
living with
watching
that.
you do that, she missed
Yeah.
most of that because she was
Mm.
gone by the time you were doing a lot
Yeah,
of
but
that.
they heard about it.
I
They
know
heard
they
about it.
did. Yeah, but what you're saying is there is no easy solution in those situations other than walking away and moving into another space and saying, I'm done. This isn't working. I've tried what I could try. It's not
Yeah.
happening. So
Yeah.
I think, it's interesting. It is that phenomena, but when you can't get what you need somewhere, you're very clear when you're not getting what you like, want, or need in a situation, it's time to take the box of what you have and go, okay, well, let's go
Right.
look somewhere else because
Right.
there's no point staying here doing this over and over
Right.
and being miserable.
Un Unless you're in a situation where, for instance, you're in a university setting and it's the person who gives out the assignments and is going to give you the grades.
You
In
got
which
it.
case, you gotta
You
suck it
gotta
up and
push through it. You
deal.
gotta suck
You
it
just,
up. You gotta figure
right.
out what they
You're
want and
allowed to call your
get through
mother
it.
and say, oh my God, can you imagine this assignment I was just given? And you say, yeah, oh well.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
work it
so
through.
do it
Get through it,
quickly.
do it, and get it over with, and then just
Just
breathe
get it
out.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think you have provided us with this amazing story and all the supporting data that's going to help a lot of other people in their journeys. And I truly appreciate everybody in the story and they're part of the story, particularly you and particularly John.
Yeah.
I have one more curiosity. You get up every morning and you're here and your life is in front of you. And how often do you look into the distance and how often do you simply live in the day?
I almost always look in the hour
Mhm.
or the day. My decision to wake up and start a new day is an overt decision that I make every morning before I get out of bed. And I get out of bed fairly early when I get out of bed. I mean, I get out of bed every morning. So far, I've gotten out of bed every morning. Um, so on the day to day, I'm very much in the here and now. Very much so. There are things, however, that happen in life that I'm thinking way far ahead.
Mhm.
I can share something that happened many years ago. Back in 2014, we were in another war in the Gaza Strip.
Mhm.
And that time, Ari was a combat soldier in Gaza.
Mhm.
Um, Having kids in war is it's not good. If you can avoid it, avoid it. But in this country, we can't always avoid it, and so I had a son in the war. And we knew that he had crossed the border. I knew that he had crossed the border because before the war actually starts at a particular time that the world doesn't really know about, but mothers in Israel, parents in Israel get phone calls from their children. And the tradition is the kids have all turned in their phones, the young men, women have all turned in their phones. They cannot cross the international border with cell phones. They do not do that.
Yeah.
And their commander passes his phone around so they can call their parents to say, I love you.
Yeah.
And that's how we know that
Crossing
the
it.
war is imminent. We're talking like within hours, minutes, or something like that. So anyway, that phone call came in, and it was about 12 days later
Mhm.
on a Saturday night that my phone rang, and it was Ari. It was the first time I'd heard his voice in 12 days and 12 nights. And during those 12 days, the only thing you hope is that you don't hear anything. Because if there's a knock at the door, that's really, really bad news. Nobody wants that. So my phone rang and he said to me the following, we've been working really hard, meaning they had not taken off their uniforms, they had not changed their socks or their underwear, they had been living in their vehicles and doing terrible work and whatever had to be done. And they finally got to a point where his unit was able to come out from the war zone into a forest not far across the border, but to have a day of respite. You can't go anywhere, but all the kids called their parents to come, bring food, bring whatever, hugs, mostly hugs, foot cream, the essentials. But it was the Sabbath for us, and we're a religious family, and most families in his unit were not religious families. And so all of his buddies' families came to visit starting at like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
And Ari apparently spent much of the day debating, should he call me and tell me that they're out, or should he not call me? And let's layer on this something that I hadn't even discussed with you, but in the process of getting John's diagnosis, in a CT, we found a meningioma is it?
Meningioma. Mhm.
A meningioma, sitting right next to his optic nerve.
Ah.
And we followed that with MRIs for about 2 years until it started growing. And we knew that if it hit the optic nerve, we were going to have somebody with dementia, diabetes type 1, and blindness. At which point Susan said, that's it. And we're not doing that. I don't really care what the risks of surgery are. The risks of having to live with
blindness
not happening.
Yeah.
Right. So John actually went into surgery. Ari was already in the army, but we weren't yet at the Gaza border. He survived. This first surgery went very well. We thought, but about 6 weeks later, we had a very bad episode on a weekend day that I thought he'd had a major stroke. Following the Sabbath, I called two of his doctors. I sent them messages, and in this country, you send messages to doctors' cell phone numbers because we're all friends and family and whatever. And I immediately got a call back saying, I don't think it's, I'm not sure that it's a stroke. I deal with end of life things all the time. And I really want you to take him to the emergency room and get an assessment because I'm not sure we're at the end of life, but and it's from a doctor I have so much respect for. And she said to me, get him into the ER, get an assessment. If in fact he had a stroke and he's going to die, I totally agree with you. Bring him home, let him die in his bed where he's comfortable. Call me on your way home. I'll be there. But if it's something else, we might still choose to bring him home, but at least you'll know what you're choosing.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
You're choosing intelligently. Yeah.
Right. So during that time, when Ari had left, he was close to the border. They were doing training and whatever. And his last words to me before he went to his unit were, if something happens, you have to swear to me that you will call my commander and tell him and relay a message to me. Because if you don't, he said, and it doesn't mean that I need to come home, but if you don't relay the message to me, I'm not sure I'll ever be able to trust you again.
Sort of like the doctor said to you, you need to know what you're doing. And once you do, I will respect your decision, but I don't want you to walk into this blind. And he said, I am not willing to walk into this blind. I need you to
not willing to hear my father, something traumatic happened with my father. And I didn't know, and everybody else knew.
And you hid it from me.
Yeah. So I called his commanding officer and I said, I'm not asking you to send him home. I know that you guys are getting ready for an incursion but Ari made me swear that I would relay the message, and I'm relaying the message. Please let him know that everything is under control. He's not a surgeon and I'm not. We have a neurosurgeon lined up. Okay. Anyway, the upshot was there was a bleed. There was a brain bleed that was subsequent to the first. Right, subsequent to the first surgery. Yeah, and it required surgical intervention. And it was at that point that I knew, okay, we're going to pop him back into the OR. They even tried to do it without full anesthesia. That was a joke. But in any event, it wasn't major. It wasn't major brain surgery. It was minor brain surgery. And while we were getting the surgeons lined up and all, I called Ari's commander and I said, you just relay the message. The next call I got was from Ari saying, I'm on my way from the front. They dropped me off at the nearest bus station. I'm on my way back to Jerusalem, and I'll be there in a few hours. And I said, but I told your commander specifically that it's not necessary. And he said to me,
your decision.
Mom, in this country, family comes first. And my commander was absolutely, because I said to him, I don't really need to go. And he said, you really need to go. When we need you here, you'll know it. We'll call you and we'll get your tush back here without delay. But right now, what we're doing is less important than being with your parents. So he came, he was there by the time John came out. I think by the time John was even going into surgery, Ari was in uniform. And the rule was you have to stay in uniform with your guns on you. Yeah. When you get the next call, shoot it back down. So that was all before the war started. So Ari was aware that John, and it was now like less than a week later that they went into this. That same night, John was released from the hospital, and we dropped Ari off at the major bus station on our way home. That was all. I was getting discharge papers when he got the phone call. So that night was the night, get John situated here all the kids are now busy with
Yep.
war-related things, and I'm home with John. So the war starts. Ari goes in. He comes out 12 days later. I got a phone call, and he said, "I know with Dad the way he is, and with everything on your plate, I wasn't really sure. And I knew if I called you, and this was now at 9:30 at night. I knew if I called you now, you'd probably want to come, but I'm not sure I want you to drive here toward the war, mind you. I'm going in the direction of the war, just to give me a hug, and like, I've been fed all day long. I have new clothes. I'm fine. I'm really okay." And I said, "Okay, but if I'm deciding to come, what do you want me to bring you?" And he said, "Well, if you have any Mackie Whack, that would be really good. And if there was some foot cream that I think I saw once in a bathroom drawer upstairs, and like, that would be great." And I said to him, because it's gonna take me almost an hour to get to you. He said, "Make the wacky mac first. Take your time. We're not moving in anytime soon from here." And he said, but you really don't have to come." And I
Right.
said, "I get it. My choice. I'm really coming, because I'm really coming."
Well, your family, you as a family, you're very clear about the difference between what I would like, what I want, and what I need.
Yeah, what's optimal and what we're gonna do anyway.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we made the Mackie Whack, and the whole time I'm cooking how long does it take? 15 minutes of preparation? Blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking to myself, okay, John is now 2 weeks post-op.
Yeah.
He was up and walking already, so that at least he was mobile again.
Yeah.
That was good. Um, and it's now like getting close to 10:30 at night on a
Uh-huh.
Saturday night, and I'm driving toward a war zone, and it's an active war. You can still hear the
Yep.
bombs, like
Yep.
the news all the
Yep.
time, 24 hours a day is where the bombs are dropping. And I'm thinking to myself, I have any number of very close friends here within, spitting distance.
Yep.
I could call any one of them and say, "Can I drop him off? Let him just sleep on your sofa, because I'm racing to see Ari."
Mhm.
He was extracted from the war zone. And anybody, any number, I could have called strangers on my
Yep.
issue of it. It would have been fine. Um, and then I thought to myself, if you want to talk about long-term thinking,
Mhm.
I'm going to be driving toward the war zone. And what happens is everybody knows about the Iron Dome, okay,
Mhm.
that shoots ballistics out of the
Yep.
air. Okay, but they only shoot ballistics out of the air that are aimed at people, right. So
Target.
if it's going to an empty field, it doesn't get shot down.
Mhm.
I'm going to be driving on a road that is a highway. That's like an empty field, right? That's not
Yep.
into a community
Yep.
with a dense population.
Yep.
So if a rocket is going to fall, um, I'm completely exposed.
Yeah.
I-
I'm taking
I'm
chances.
driving my
I'm
Mazda
taking
3,
risks.
and
It's like I'm going into
totally risk.
surgery myself. All kinds of things could happen. There's no guarantees here. So,
Right.
have I thought
So what
about
do
this?
I do?
Yeah.
So my thought was, I could call any number of people and leave John here, but if something happens to me and he's left, then what?
Mhm.
And a much better idea is to put him in the car next to me, having nothing to do with whether Ari needs a hug from
Yeah.
his father or not, because that
Nope.
was already not
No.
the issue.
Yeah. No.
It had everything to do with, if one of us is going to go, good Lord, you got to take us both. I'm not leaving him
Wow.
here
Mhm.
for someone else to have to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that kind of long-term
That kind of
thinking,
long-term thinking in the moment, but appreciating the tomorrow if, when, because this could be a when situation, not an if. In this case, it was
oh,
an
for
if,
sure.
but you don't know for sure if it's going to be an if or a when. And
Right.
so I got to take control of this piece to not leave this exposed wire
Yeah.
floating around
Yeah.
out.
No. Could my kids take care of their father in the absence of their mother? Yeah, they would. And would it mean that he would move to a different housing situation? Most likely, I would hope so. But but that wasn't the issue. The issue was I still felt very responsible at that point. Teepa, you're muted.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Good.
Um,
Thank you for
so
noticing.
that kind of
Yeah,
preparation, thinking longer term is very much a part of my constant
yeah.
life.
Awareness. So
Yeah.
if you were to have something suddenly happen to you now, not related to the war zone, not related to anything we could have predicted, it just happens. What's your plan? Do you have a plan? I guess I should ask, is there a plan for Ari?
There's
Not for
totally a
Ari, for
plan.
John.
There is totally a plan. In fact, I just finished all the legal documentation a few days ago.
Surprise!
Um,
Not.
no, I mean, the truth is, very shortly after his diagnosis, once we knew for sure that we're talking terminal, we're talking things are not going to get better. As I said to people many times, he's either going to die from this or with this,
Right,
but there's no other choice. I
right.
went and redid my will
Okay,
because as a married half,
you got it.
that was no longer relevant. And all along, again, my kids were fairly much younger.
Mhm.
It's 12 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that, 12 years ago.
12 years ago.
And even though they were much younger, none of them was married yet.
Right.
I said to them, these are the decisions I've made. And I've made decisions that name you guys as the inheritors. And your father is not mentioned.
Mhm.
And one of my darlings said to me, but Ima, you know, you know that we would take care of Abba. Obviously, we wouldn't leave him to rot somewhere. And I said, I know, I understand that, but I also want you to have the freedom because you guys, God willing, are going to get older and may have families. And I don't want there to be a situation where, because of written legal
Yeah.
structure that I've set up, that there's an opportunity for something medical or social for Abba, and you find yourself in a situation that, God forbid, one of you or maybe one of your children needs some fantastic medical care, and it can only be done outside of this country, and it's phenomenally expensive. And in fact, the family money is available, but not enough for both. And I don't want you to feel ever like his care trumps something else.
Moving
It's
forward.
a discussion. You have to come to a decision, but I'm not going to take that out
Mm.
of
Of the
play by
equation.
saying his needs need to be met. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't really have so many needs because we can't make his situation better.
No, yeah.
Um,
And
so
caring care is the thing that you most desire.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, it's just caring care.
and I might not even always be able to get that.
No, it's
I haven't
understood. I mean,
always
you've
been
tried
able to get
multiple
that.
times to get that, and it's not always the case. I
It's not always
mean,
that
that's
he doesn't always
basically,
get it from me.
no, I
Let's
mean,
be
we have to be
honest.
honest, we're human. I mean, when we quit being human, then we'll be great. I mean, I'd be great. I don't think it's going to happen in this lifetime. I think we're in rental property and we do what we can with it.
Right. So
That's
there are
correct.
things like that. I
Yeah.
also have legal, so part of it was having the legal documentation here in this country in the right language with the right lawyers.
Yep.
I also have taken care of something that we have, what is it called? Dural
Durable healthcare power of attorney? No.
power of attorney
Yep.
for me. What
Yep.
happens if I am not dead but
Yeah.
incapacitated? And what are the decisions that have to be made and how are they made, and financial decisions
Gotcha.
and medical
Yep.
decisions and blah, blah, blah. And they, now that I didn't take care of it earlier, I took care of it really recently. And it's hours and hours of work with a billion
Yep.
decisions to be
It sure
made.
enough is.
Um,
Yeah.
and which of the kids should be the prime decision makers in terms of financial issues, and which in terms of medical issues, and how do you make it so that you can require that they all have a discussion, but any of them can make the decision. It's a very complicated legal jargon,
Yep.
but that's all in place.
Good job.
Susan one day will disappear from this world, and the world will continue, and I'm fully aware of that, and I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with that.
Yeah.
That's,
And
sometimes I
yet
think
there's a
just
legacy. I mean, but I think the very work you've done and what you're talking about here and the things that we're doing, there's legacy work because it matters. Our
Yeah.
being here did matter. What
Yeah,
you
yeah.
chose and how you did that made a difference. And there's a new stepping stone that's available. There's a new pathway that might become visible. There are new opportunities that will arise because of the work that we choose to do. And it's
I
what we
hope so.
choose. Yeah, we
I
know.
hope so.
Oh, so
And on the micro level for my children, I hope that I've given them skills, life skills, to
clearly,
decide
other than missing one,
priorities. And yeah, I mean, being a solo parent, being a single
yeah,
parent, and Lord knows that that is not, I am not unique to this world as a single
no,
parent.
not a bit.
I am unfortunately surrounded right now by young widows with very young children who are going to have to raise these kids
On their
by
own.
themselves and with
Yeah,
communities and with family, extended family. And it's horrible. I mean, I was certainly not ever in that situation. My children were real whole people
yeah.
when we had to encounter this together. And I think, I mean, the one thing I have trouble taking credit for
Mhm.
anything that's going on because I really feel like I'm a vessel. I've been given tools and skills and strength
Yeah.
not everybody gets or not everybody finds. But I will tell you on the day that I received the diagnosis, we had been through, all kinds of medical testing and blah, blah, blah. I called the kids together and I said, okay, we have an answer. Now, by the time we got our answer, it was such a relief to have
Yeah,
an answer.
exactly. Yeah. People don't realize
Um,
that you do love
it's
getting an answer because you're just like, it's such a roller coaster until you finally get something you can wrap
I
your head around.
needed an answer, and I didn't even appreciate for at that point how important it was getting an answer because of again the insurance issues. You
Mhm.
can't get insurance coverage.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't get workman's comp if I couldn't
Yep.
prove that he was sick. Maybe he just didn't feel like doing a good job at work and he got fired, so that was like a real relief. But I remember very distinctly saying to the kids that night in a family meeting that I had called, we now know what it is. We know where it's going. I don't know how I don't know what the journey will look like, but we're gonna go from here to the end. And I do know that it's gonna get worse before it gets better. I know that each of you needs to find places for support. You will always have me for as long as I'm here.
Mhm.
That's a given. There's nothing you can't discuss with me, argue with me, ask me. That's all out on the table. I was always open with the kids. So
Right.
again, I didn't require a personality change to face this new challenge. But I said my one request, demand of the children, I said to them, look, this disease is going to take your father. It
Mhm.
might well take me also.
Mhm.
I really don't want it to take any of you. And so you need to get on with your lives and you need to promise me that you will
Mhm.
get on with your lives. And it doesn't divorce you from the family situation, but I can't let this suck you all into the black hole.
Yeah.
Um, in some cases, it did definitely impact them. Ari was asked to go to commander's training. He was invited to a commander's course, and he turned down the Army's request. His commander said, "I want you to go into the course for commanders." And when I heard he had turned it down, I was furious. I was absolutely like, "You're serving our country, and you have the right personality, and what the heck, huh?" And he said to me, Emma, I've had good commanders and I've had bad commanders. And the difference is a good commander always has his soldiers in his head all the time. And I have Abba in my head. I have my father in my head too much of the time that there could be a time when I need to have my soldiers there and Abba's taking that place. I can't be a good officer. And so I'm not doing it. And to this day, I feel bad. That training would
Ah,
have been fantastic for him.
yeah, but that was not yours. And you know that.
But it
Yeah, that
wasn't to
was
be
yours.
done. It was
It wasn't yours.
right. And he was a grown up by then. I mean, he
Yes,
made a
he
choice.
was. He is grown
I,
up by then. So this idea of that you have the boss of him, you're not the boss of him. You know that.
no, 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 no.
Yeah, you knew that.
My
Yeah.
thoughts were after the fact. He had already said no. There was no changing
Okay.
that. It was
It's just,
not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are things that definitely impact their, yeah, it's a family journey
It
in
is.
the
It is.
best case scenario.
And I want to say thank you again for sharing your family's journey and the stories that have made it so valuable. So, shalom
Thank you.
and thank you. You're
Thanks
making
very
a
much.
difference.
Happy to be part of the global journey.
Hi, it's Teepa Snow, owner and founder of Positive Approach to Care. You found us here and you watched this video. If you found it helpful, if you liked it, like, comment, and share with people you know. And if you want more, consider following our page so we can let you know when something new pops up.